Welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, I'm William Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Element and the host of the Up Arrow Podcast, where I feature the best minds in e-commerce to help you scale from 10 million to 100 million and beyond as you up arrow your business and your personal life. Today's guest is someone who doesn't just think about e-commerce strategy, he engineers it. Rishabh Jain is the co-founder and CEO of FERMÁT, the leading commerce experience platform which serves the most innovative brands and retailers in the world, like Glacier, U-Beauty, Unilever, Bissell, Backcountry, among hundreds of others. Before he was building software used by some of the smartest operators in D2C, he earned a PhD in solid-state physics, studied at MIT Sloan, and once pitched Brian Halligan, only to be told his nervous energy made him untrustworthy. Spoiler, we'll talk about how he turned that into a superpower later. Rishabh is the kind of founder who doesn't just ask what works, he asks why it worked, what stopped working, what's coming next. He's also the guy who casually drops Andy Grove quotes in conversation and isn't afraid to challenge some of the most entrenched assumptions in e-commerce, like the validity of multi-touch attribution or the myth of AOV on TikTok Shop. We're going to have a lot of fun today. Rishabh, welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast.
Oh my God, that's the single best introduction I've ever heard.
Yeah, man. You have a lot that I can talk about.
Wow, that was so good. That was so good. I think that's the episode.
There you go.
End it on a high. You gotta end it on a high note. I'm super excited. I'm super excited. Now you have me all amped up. Yeah.
All right. Well, good.
Somehow,
that's the energy.
Somehow the meat has got to be better than the app. You know what I mean? So let's see if we can do that.
It will be. I got one quick thing, and then we're going to jump right into the good stuff. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly $800 million and one that IPO'd. You can learn more on our website at element.com, which is spelled ELUMYNT.com. Okay, let's jump in and talk about some of the foundations of strategic growth. You quoted Andy Grove with me one time on strategic inflection points. What's the biggest one e-commerce is facing now?
Yeah. So I think e-commerce has had the most number of strategic inflection points of any industry. It's like, said differently, it's like every year for the past 5 years, there has been like some sort of massive shift in the ecosystem. Obviously with like the pandemic, and then with inventory and shipping problems, and then like now most recently with the tariffs. But I would say that like the one that's happening right now, which we are very surprised by, how exactly the shape of the landscape is evolving because of it, is there seems to be particular pressure on what I would describe as the middle of the market in e-commerce. So let's call it like 5 to 100 million. So exactly the segment that like you and your team are best at serving, relative to smaller or larger. And I think the reason for this is with things like the tariffs and with, especially in the first half of the year, now it seems like it's rebounding, but in the first half of the year, the consumer was weaker. Like you saw it in the travel data, you saw it in all sorts of data. You would see it in like CACs going up for mid-scale brands. So like if you're a $30 to $40 million brand, you would see the highest impact to like your CAC going up meaningfully if you tried to scale your campaigns, especially on like Meta or other platforms. And the reason for that is that you got hit two ways. The first way you're getting hit is you have quote unquote benefited from growth up until that point of being able to acquire new users with like an amazing product and great angles. But at some point at that scale, you're like, you have hit most of your audience. And so the next new customer is more expensive, and meaningfully so. At the same time, your cost of new product introduction has gone up because of the tariffs. If you're like, depending on your product category, obviously, right? Sure. But generally speaking, right? Like if we speak in generalizations, which I know is not exactly correct, but that's like, and the cash conversion cycle of that is really tough when you're in the middle, when you don't have supply side diversification. On the upper side, you have supply side diversification. So if you were to talk to like the CEO of Brooklinen, when the tariffs hit, he was just like, yeah, I kind of just like pointed my cannon in a different direction. He's like,
Sure.
I went to our factories in location X instead of location Y. And he has like, 15 suppliers. Whereas if you're between 10 and 100, you usually have one supplier.
Right.
And then in the small side, you don't have a new customer saturation problem. And more importantly, you don't have a cash flow problem because you don't have as much inventory risk because you're like probably ordering one batch of inventory for the year. You're not carrying month to month risk on your inventory. So it has like this very so that's what I would describe as the current strategic inflection point is like there's this weird market where the middle is facing the most pressure. And so we're going to see, especially the middle, do lots of interesting things. A lot of them are leaning out OpEx. We're going to see lots of interesting things. So that's where I think the most interesting strategic inflection point is right now.
Which is often always a good thing to do, right? Like there's like that, grow, optimize, grow, optimize, grow, optimize. And so there's opportunity to improve the OpEx, but there's also opportunity to figure out how you can differentiate things. And I'm trying not to say too much here because there's a whole section that I want to talk about with you on this, on like what does that middle group do then? But I don't want to get into it yet because there's a couple of other things I want to get to first.
But I would say, yeah, the way I would paint it is like, this is the market architecture that we are seeing.
Yeah.
And like the way other e-com operators will relate to this is you have seen email and SMS sends increase actually more than usual because people are trying to get their overall cost of revenue to go down. Mm-hmm. And so the cheapest way to do that is by hitting their existing base more and more. Mm-hmm. You're seeing like there's lots of data points you can look at that make this data like quote unquote come to life. And that's what I would say is like the most important thing for people to think about.
Is that a good thing to do right now? To milk your existing customer base right now?
That's like an impossible question for me to answer. Like, because I don't know any given bit. Like, I know like broadly, but like for any given business, I have no idea. Like, it could be great, it could be bad. I have like no idea for any given business. What I will say is, if you're doing it because hey, right now is highest uncertainty, and I just need to like grow through this, and then I'll like make another decision in like September, October for the holiday season, and then I'll make another decision in January for the new year. I think that is a very perfectly reasonable way to play it. Like, I have like no reason to say that that's not a good idea. Yeah.
So the thing that I like about that is, let's just imagine we get to the other side of this here a year from now. Some people are going to just redline everything and like no caution whatsoever, right? And some of those people, it's going to work out just fine for, and they're going to be on the other side of that. Some people are going to, maybe take this approach where it's a much more conservative approach, and they will survive, right? Like the whole point is like you have to survive any one of these situations in order to stay in the game. If you stay in the game long enough, you're usually going to win. But if you die in the game, you don't have a chance. Some of the people who are going to go ahead and throw caution to the wind are going to end up failing. And so say, and I'm just going to guess, right? Like I'm going to make up a number, like let's go to Pareto principle, 80-20. 20% of the people who just throw caution to the wind, they're still going to end up on the other side. 80% of them, they're going to completely go out of business, and so they're out of the game. What we'll end up hearing from, though, are the ones who succeeded oftentimes, right, at the other side of this survivor bias. And so they're going to say, look, I told you, you should have just gone long on the S&P. You should have just gone long on this. You should have just done this, and you would have been fine. I called it. I was right. But to your point, maybe that would be right, and maybe some people are willing to take that risk, and that's fine. But more often than not, playing a little bit of a wise game to stay in the game is usually going to be the better bet for more businesses.
Okay. Yeah, I think we have now entered the territory where I am probably going to disagree with that.
Okay, please.
Yeah. So, and I think it depends on the type of business that you're running.
Okay.
I'll give you a really good analogy and it may not be perfect, but I'll give you an analogy from the tech world, which again is not the same as like D2C commerce. So these lessons are not perfect, but in the tech world, we had like a tech recession in 22. Okay. And in 2020, if you rewind the clock like 2.5 years, 100% of VCs were advising their portfolio to just switch to profitability over growth. Okay. And so this was like the rhetoric. Like if you could like do a rewind clock on X and like look at all of the VC posts from back then, you would see like a massive over optimization for profitability over growth, right?
Sure. Yep.
Now, the problem is that over optimization led to a bunch of businesses that were uninvestable. And so, because like it turns out that the job of capital going into a business is to increase the value, and the only way you increase value is growth. Like profitability doesn't actually increase value sufficiently relative to growth. And so what ended up happening is the businesses that invested through it, and actually there's a lot of studies, like HBS has done studies, McKinsey has done studies, that if you look over long durations of time, the companies that are aggressive through like down cycles are the ones that end up winning in the long term. And so this is where like you have to be careful about being honest with yourself about what kind of business you're trying to build. So if it's a bootstrap business and you're like running it for cash flow, and which I'm not judgmental of, but you're not like, you just at the start of this podcast, you were like, one exited at one got acquired for 800, another one went public. That doesn't happen by playing it safe.
Correct.
Like those companies have to invest through like the flat and down cycles. Otherwise, they actually never hit those outcomes. And so depending on what outcome you are playing for, you actually have a different way of operating the business, which is why I'm like not sure I would fully agree with that.
That's fair. And I'd say like it depends on the context in which you're coming into this. If you've raised a Series B, you probably have to be a lot more aggressive because that's necessary. If you're a business that is, like you said, self-funded and trying to stay, if they could go out of business all of a sudden, then you're out of this as well. And so I appreciate the nuance. How do you apply this mindset at FERMÁT when you're helping brands pivot through some of these economic headwinds like tariffs, things like that? What are you talking through?
I tell our customers what I actually think all the time. So for better or for worse, right? So like I often tell this story. I like met a prospect in 22, I want to say. It was early on in business. And it was like a hot brand at the time. And they were describing how, like, what they value and how they value that thing. And there was a particular element of the business that they cared about very deeply. It was like a certain way that they kind of like showed up for their customers. So much they cared about it, so much so that they prioritized that over the unit economics of the business. Right. And I was like, hey, if that's the priority, then like we should not explore whether or not FERMÁT is a fit for you. Because we're like too much of a metrics driven product for this to be a good fit for your organization. Right. So anyway, I say that to say like, hey, when businesses ask me today, like, hey, like, what do you think about this particular situation, or how would you go about it? There are plenty of situations in which I say like, here's where I would spend time. Here's where I would focus. Here's how we can be helpful. Or I might just tell them like, honestly, like we're a distraction to you right now. Like you have so many bigger problems to worry about that any amount of time you spend talking to us is like a bad use of your time.
I love the honesty. I try to do the same as well, right? Where it's like, no, this is not what you need right now. But I'm curious, what are the things that you're seeing in a business that you would say most likely we would be a distraction for you at this part of your business?
Most likely make it, a good fit or
like,
a bad fit?
No, a bad fit. That you're like, no, like that you would be a distraction to them, that FERMÁT would be a distraction. You're like, these are a couple of the things that are likely going on in your business.
Okay. The number one thing is your COGS have just doubled.
Sure. Sure.
Like, for whatever reason, however the tariffs have newly gotten applied to you, whatever is the sort of full downstream impact of like the net impact to you is if your COGS have just doubled, you should worry about the fact that your COGS have just doubled.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you should not worry about your marketing stack. You should not worry about your content. You should not worry like you need to think through what unit economics are feasible here in order for this to be a durable business, or do I just need to like change how I do the product, which could actually be an answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's like an easy example, and that was very real in terms of like the things that happened in like May and June of this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another very good example is if someone says to me, hey, like right now this is like, and I'm curious what you would say about this.
Sure.
If someone says to me like, hey, we're a $50 million brand, we have our D2C dialed in, we need to grow another 40, but we need to do that entirely on retail. Like, we are going to be like, again, I would say that we are going to be a distraction probably, because actually the CEO, the CMO, and the CFO should all be worried about their retail distribution. Mm-hmm. Because to keep the D2C business where it currently is should not be that hard. Now, I mean, there could be things going on in the background that actually make it very hard. Like if it's a one-time use product, and there's like lots of reasons why it's actually very hard to do that. But nominally,
sure,
like it's a distraction, right? So those are the types of things where it's like, hey, growth of your D2C business is not the priority, and that is totally okay. Mm-hmm. Like, let's just be honest about it, and then we can move on. Yeah.
We work with a lot of brands where D2C makes up like 1% or 5% of their business, and so in that situation, that might not be the priority. There's a bigger piece to the puzzle. What you were saying though about the COGS doubling, and you could be a distraction in that. I like thinking about like word pictures for some reason. That's just the way my brain works. And what I pictured there was somebody saying that they need to like improve their VO2 max, and they have like 2 broken femurs. And it's like, I mean, that's a good goal, but like, how about we just repair your broken bones first, and then you can get back to running and doing what you need to do to improve that VO2 max. But, right, it's a distraction for right now. There's this glaring thing, and it's your COGS are double. We need to focus on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that people want to like be excited about the other things that they could do. And like we play in growth, and growth is always exciting. And so unfortunately, it's like easy to get excited. Mm-hmm. But like neither us nor them are going to benefit from just being excited and not actually being the core thing that they need to worry about.
I think it could be an excitement, and I think it could also be a chaos. I think about people that are drowning. This is a metaphor that I use all the time. If somebody's drowning, more than likely they start doing a lot of movements, but there are movements that are not conducive to helping them not drown. They're actually the opposite. And I think that I see brands do this a lot of times too, right? Where it's like, I know that I need to focus on the COGS, but that problem seems insurmountable. So I'm just going to focus on this little problem here because I feel like I can at least accomplish and tackle this and feel good about myself instead of tackling the thing that I actually need to do.
Yes, that is like for sure a big part of it. I mean, like, yeah, I don't want to go like on a whole tangent, but that's true in every business. In like in every business, for every person, like they want to do the thing that's like fun, exciting, and gives them energy versus the thing that's like necessary and is like critical path for 2 reasons. One is it could potentially be less fun or less personally interesting, but more importantly, they know in the back of their head that once they start doing that thing, if they fail, then they're really effed.
Right.
And that's super scary. And so that actually prevents most people from like doing the one thing that actually matters, is because they have to come to terms with the fact that if they can't do that thing, everything else is irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Speaking of a couple of things that can be, let's just say, difficult to admit to, a couple of things that we talked on. You've been critical of multi-touch attribution. Why does it break down as you scale? What is it about multi-touch attribution that you're critical of?
Yeah. I want to find the least offensive way to say this. So
that's good.
While still being honest, honest. Yeah. I think that like, so first of all, MTA is not causal. It is like experiments and incrementality is causal, which is like, hey, I turned off ads in Ohio and here is the effect, right? There's like a cause and effect, right? Like that's like just like normal experiment design, right? So the fact that it's not causal, but is used causally is like actually my biggest problem with it. MTA is like a credit system. It's like, hey, I'm gonna make up some reason why I want to give credit to like certain touch points leading to some sort of event. And very few people are disciplined enough to like actually take it for what it is, which is like, hey, I am going to do this arbitrary credit assignment. And then given my knowledge of how I have given the credit, I'm going to like look at what it says and then use that as an input for decision making on like how to allocate spend and things like that. If people were using it that way, then I would have no problem with it.
Sure.
But people use it causally. So they're like, hey, my MTA model is saying it's like, you know, this thing is whatever, like new customer ROAS. And I'm like, that is insane. Like, there's just no way for you to go so many steps from like an MTA model to like a number like that, because now you are using it causally.
Sure.
And it is not a causal. It is not a causal thing. It is just a credit assignment tool. And I especially dislike MTA, like black box MTA models, because now what you're doing is you're like saying, not only am I going to not use it for what it is, but I'm not even going to bother asking where the weights come from for the assignment to the different things. And I'm just going to trust some random system to arbitrarily give the weights. Now you're like reading a monitor without understanding where the data even comes from, right?
The way you describe
that's my problem. That's my problem. It's like looking at the Whoop, like at your Whoop or whatever Fitbit, and looking at your readiness score. I feel the same way about people who look at their readiness score.
Sure.
I'm just like, this is an insane thing for you to use to decide how to spend your day. Like, I cannot think of anything more insane, because you have no idea how it decided to come up with that number. And it is not causal. So,
right.
Yeah.
The way you describe this, I would say that I'm completely in agreement with you. Wrote an article years back, maybe 2020, 2021, I don't remember what year, called the ROAS Death Spiral. And it was based along the same things. And what I tried to explain to businesses was there are only two facts. The only fact is how much you've spent and how much money you actually have in your like Shopify, like in your checking account, right? Like those are the two, like how much money you made and how much money you spent. Those are the only two facts. All of the other attribution sources are completely made up. They are helpful. They can be guidelines. We use them as one of the data points that we look at to decide whether things are working. And so when we look at things from an attribution standpoint with our agency, I'm like, great, what does your MTA say? Cool, I'll take that in consideration along with what does your customer survey say, along with what does your UTM say, along with, what does your Shopify actually say? But ultimately, I'm right there with you. Our favorite thing is going to be a holdout test. It's the only way that you really kind of start to see a little bit more of causality. And there's a disruption to that. And so you can't use it all the time. You can't use it for every campaign. You can't use it for every single thing. And so I can appreciate MTA, but where I look at it, what I'd say is if it disagrees with the other things, then all I'm saying is there's a disagreement with this. Let's take a look at what's right and where it's right. And we need to do a holdout test to figure it out.
So can I ask a controversial question on
Please.
that point?
Yeah.
So you said like, hey, I can't do an incrementality test for everything, and so I have to use something to make it. Let me ask a totally separate question. What do you think drives the need for having something at all? Like, why not just do stuff and see what ends up happening to the cash flow?
Yeah.
Like why even bother? And this is actually what makes me extremely scared of MTA is I think it gets used as a crutch
100%.
for explainability, where the person does not have the confidence to just say like, hey, like, I feel pretty good that like this is the way that we should continue to invest in our thing, and then just like letting it flow through to the like you said, letting it flow through to the cash flow, like to the checking account, and being like, okay, when I dial this knob, the checking account gets bigger. When I dial this knob, the checking account gets smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I have some hypotheses to your question. I think part of it is signal to noise issues, especially across different teams. And so if you have one person who's a completely different person making changes on their ads, another person is a completely different team making changes on their influencer stuff, I think that it can become difficult for each person to say, well, who actually is right in this situation? And so I'd say like some of it is the signal noise issue. Some of it is going to be the defensibility that is requested of them by, the CEO or finance or a board, because I think that it's easy for you and I sometimes as a CEO to say, I'm just going to do this thing. And if the account goes up, the business goes up, then, I was right. But I think that other people feel the need to have a defensibility for them to keep their jobs potentially.
And this is where my dislike from MTA comes from.
Sure.
Is I think that that's actually the reason we use MTA as an industry.
Sure.
I don't actually think it's because it helps us improve our businesses. I think it's because it helps us keep our jobs, which I don't actually fault anybody for. Mm-hmm. But that's why I am trying with all my power to like, and which is very little, right? But that's why I like push very hard against it, because it's like, look, ultimately either you trust your team or you don't. And like, the person on the team might feel more comfort because they have something to use in those conversations with their boss. But the fact that we have like a whole segment of tools whose like job it is to like architect those conversations is like really wild to me. Yeah. Like, that's actually how I feel about it. Yeah.
You raise a very good point. And I think that's interesting. What is a simpler model then for e-commerce operators to use if they're going to say, hey, throughout the MTA, what should they do instead?
Like closer to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Look at the bank account. Start with, we will not have one source of truth.
Yes.
We are going to have triangulation conversations.
Yes. Ooh,
we're going to have some incrementality. We're going to have some like, where did you hear about us? Or where did you first, however you want to do surveys. We're going to have some MTA inputs. We're going to, by the way, if you're going to do an MTA, at least like do all of them. Look at the first touch, look at the last touch, look at a uniform distribution, and just like say, hey, we're going to be honest with ourselves about the fact that this is like we know that it is impossible to get the measurement correct. So we're going to start with that acknowledgement of reality, and then we're going to use multiple sources of data to make the best decision that we can. And we're going to feel comfortable and confident in doing that instead of like seeking comfort from false precision. Like that is what I would suggest people to do, which I know is super annoying and painful, but that's my genuine suggestion. Yeah.
So I love it. It is the most pedantic one because that is how we approach it. So there's an example I love to give, which is I broke a lot of bones growing up because I did a lot of dumb things like, backflipping on a pogo stick off of a loading dock and breaking my wrist and stuff like that. So when you go in to get an x-ray for a broken bone, they'll take a picture of one view and the other view, right? Like they have to see three-dimensionally because every other one is still just a two-dimensional flat image. And I say the same thing about MTA. It's still just a flat look at data. It's data that was three-dimensional, but then it was flattened out. It's still just one look at it. I can only understand. I like the triangulation is what you said. I like seeing it from like three-dimensional point of view where it's like, I need to see that alongside what people are saying, alongside what your bank account is saying, alongside what Google Analytics is saying, alongside what the platform is saying. I can take all of those. And if they agree, I'm probably moving in the right direction. If they don't, then I need to probably run a holdout test to figure out which one's right, which one's wrong, and how do I readjust. Okay.
I agree.
Let's talk about platform AOV. You specifically mentioned that TikTok Shops makes it hard to increase AOV. Why is that?
Sorry, that was more an empirical observation, just to make sure I say it. Like it's just like, hey, empirically, it turns out it's hard to get high AOV on TikTok. Now, like, why is that? I think that like any in-platform shopping experience tends for any given brand to reduce the total number of products that you buy from that brand.
Totally agree.
Including and up to Amazon.
I was going to call that out if you didn't. Yes, 100%.
So like any platform, right?
Yep.
So like the only place where you get attached to your own products is your own and operated property. Mm-hmm. That's the only place. Because every other platform, their incentive is not to drive just one brand's products, but just to get the behavior of the consumer buying from multiple people. And the best way for them to do that actually is to to do the opposite, to make sure they only buy one thing from you and that they buy the second thing from someone else and the third thing from someone else and the fourth thing from someone else. So like if all you did was wonder, hey, what are the incentives? You would land at the most likely outcome is they're only going to buy one product from me, right? Because that's the best case outcome for the platform. Now, there's a secondary issue, which is like the speed of like information flow. And again, because you're on a media platform, their intent is to drive consumption of media, not consumption of product information. Mm-hmm. And so again, like now this one is like not as perfect, but it is generally true that the higher the AOV, the longer the information flow tends to be, or the more information flow is required, no matter how length is like a bad measurement, but the more information flow is required. Mm-hmm. And given that they want you to spend your time on media, not on PDP information, the most likely outcome is that you get compressed down into the territory where the person can actually make a purchase given the amount of information you are allowed to send to them. So those are the two primary reasons.
So the information flow reminds me of, you're going through the checkout at the grocery store and it's like they have a couple of like impulse buys there because you don't need a lot of information to decide if you want to buy them. You're sitting there waiting in line. You got 30 seconds. You're like, yeah, go ahead and throw that on there, right? Whereas you're not going to likely pick something that is a $400 item up from the grocery store line while you're waiting in line there, because you're actually going to want to take a little bit of time, read some reviews, check it out. Similar concept where it's like condensed time frame. So I like where you're going with that. When I think about Facebook Shop, TikTok Shop, etc., I agree with that. Everything you just said, I agree with. The other thing that I think that's interesting that I found is that it tends to not drive quite as high a quality of a customer as a general rule. Again, generalizing things, not as good because they're not maybe as ingratiated to your brand, to your point, as they would be otherwise. And so, when I can, I like to still push towards the website. But I like using the shops for that very reason, the same reason that's like if I ran a grocery store, I would still try to sell you things while you're sitting waiting in line. Do you like the use of them? Do you think they have a place? Or are you like, honestly, just get rid of them, just try and push as much as you possibly can to your website?
Great question. Yeah. This is like, again, I think this is in the territory of like impossible to generalize, but I think the actual answer is like it is based on your business model. Like what I would not do is do it assuming it will save your business. Do it because you have heard it has worked for someone else's business, or do it because like you think there's some massive alpha to be had. I would do it if, despite all of those things being false, it is still beneficial to your company. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you like a good example. Like, it is, there's going to be a category of companies where even if they never come back and purchase from you again, even if it is like perceived as like a discount purchase, like blah, 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 it is still beneficial for you to reach those customers through that channel because of whatever other strategic reason that you are like thinking about your business. So like this is like potentially not true, but like an arbitrary example would be like, hey, I'm trying to find the best way to get women between the age of 20 and 30 to try my product, and all like the only thing I want to know is that they have had exposure to the product. Right? If like that's like the type of business objective, it's like, yeah, like, okay, you don't actually care if they come back to your website later. You don't actually like, and that could actually work great. Like it really could, because you just have to be first, like you just have to make sure the math works, right? So, and there are lots of businesses that grow like this where they're just like, hey, I just need to get this in people's hands. I kind of don't actually care whether there's a repeat purchase that's happening.
No, that makes sense. It's kind of similar to maybe the ones that have done really well on TikTok, freeze-dried candy, for instance, or things like that, where it's like it's sensational. You don't really need to get them to come to your website to buy a bunch more candy. You're like, I just need to get them to come buy this, bag of candy.
Yeah, exactly. Like the best example of it is a product that upon like the biggest thing is that the trial will lead to a good customer. So like sugar is kind of good for that.
Sure.
Like it turns out that the more sugar, like once you have a little bit of sugar, you're going to have more sugar.
Sure.
So that's great,
What tactics do you recommend then for building some high performing owned properties that will reclaim margin and increase the LTV?
I think like I mean the guys at Ridge have like talked about this before, but I think that they do a good job of this, which is they actually like know that they are reaching different audiences with different products. So they actually run like what looks like one store, but it's actually multiple stores.
Really?
And so I think that like meeting the customer where they are and being able to interact with audiences where they are versus like forcing them to fit your mold of what should bring them to your site is like by far the biggest source of alpha. Now, of course, that happens to be what we do, right? So there, like, I am 100% conflicted in my view on.
But this is why you believe in it. This is why you created it. So.
Yeah, totally, exactly. It is the case that it is the other way around. Like I believe it, and therefore I built the business. Not I built the business, and therefore I need to say that I believe it. And so like but it turns out that if you just meet people where they are, and the reason that this is not rocket science is that's what we do with ads. We just happen to not do that with the website. Yeah.
So, okay. So, for maybe people who are saying, wait a minute, I don't actually understand what FERMAT does in this exact scenario. Like, what do you mean by like multiple versions of a store? Like, what is this that you're talking about?
Yeah. Like my simplest example of this is like, let's just take an apparel brand. I usually like use, like Alo Yoga, right? As an example, arbitrarily, right? It's like, okay, Alo, when it was like mostly a women-oriented brand, right? And then they added men's products. When you go to the website, you still mostly see women, right? When you go to the main site. So if you're running but it turns out that they actually have great men's apparel too. And so it's like, if you get directed to the site like from an ad, an Alo ad for men is not one that has a bunch of women in it. Like generally it is like showing the men's products on a male model. And so when you go to the site, you would expect to see the same thing. And you would expect to be in a site experience that is like sufficiently continuous to that ad experience and to where your psychology is, that you don't want breaks in it, where all of a sudden you're like, now I'm confused. I'm like looking at a bunch of women's clothes. Like, am I actually even buying the right product? Like, did I buy the men's version? Did I buy the women's version? Like, what am I buying? Like, you don't want all of that because you want to like make sure that you can actually just meet the audience where they are. I'll give you, this actually happened to me. There's a workout product I got the Father's Day email campaign for. And so it's like a male using this workout product. And I clicked on it. And literally when I landed on the site, it was just all women. And I was like, wait, what is like, did I click on the right place? I like went back to the email to make sure I clicked on the right place and not like on the not on the company name, because I thought for sure this could not be correct. Yeah, like that's how bad it was.
That's confusing. Yeah, and like now you have to get over the hurdle of like, wait, you've just created doubt in a customer who you didn't want to create doubt for. What's an example of a brand that has done this? You know, you talked about Ridge, you talked about Alo. What's an example of a brand that has done something unique with this that you're like, oh, when we built this, I hadn't thought about it that way, but I really like the way they approach this.
So let's do Target swimwear. So here's a really good example. And I only got turned on to this recently. So Target does this thing. Okay, so here you see this women's extra high leg, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to click on this. With Target and with Wayfair, what they have started to do is when you click on a Google PLA ad or like a DPA ad, it does not take you to the PDP. Instead, what it takes you to is a page where you see what looks like a PDP card of the product. Yeah. And then a bunch of other inventory that they merchandise. And the way that you can tell this, and I encourage people to do this, is go to Google, search like whatever, swimwear Target or something like that, some generic thing that you know Target will sell. Click on it, go to the URL, and then remove the entire referral part of the URL. But don't remove the main URL.
Okay. And
based on where the referrer is, it changes the page. So once you remove the referrer, then it takes you to the PDP. But with the referrer being the Google PLA ad, it takes you to a like special merchandise thing. And so what this has turned me on to is, okay, like the most sophisticated retailers clearly understand that where you are coming from impacts how you will buy.
For sure.
And so like that has directly influenced how we think about what are the types of products we should be building.
I love that. It reminds me of my product hunt days back in the day when, you know, we used to have like, at least I was in SaaS, and every single time if we had a free trial and if somebody was coming from Product Hunt or they're coming from somewhere else, it's like we made sure that custom, like the whole website experience was customized to them because, well, I say the whole website experience. The landing page experience was customized to them, but to the point where it's like, I know now more about what their problems are, what psychology they have. I can usually gear this a little bit more towards a way that makes them more excited, more understanding of what we're trying to do. That's true for every human.
Exactly.
I want to talk about the thing that you started to allude to in like the very first question, audience cohort expansion, because this is something that you had talked to me about, and I really like the way that you went into this, but you told me that most brands can get to maybe 10 million with one core audience, but getting to 100 million requires more. What's the right way to find and activate a second or third audience?
Yeah. It's funny. Do you know Brian Kano, the head of marketing at Now True Classic, previously at Nude?
Yes. I know him. I know of him. I don't know that he would know me, but yes, I know of him.
Okay. So he has this like framing that I really like. So I've like borrowed it from him. So I want to give him credit.
Sure.
He's like, you can reach 100 off of just Facebook ads, like no other channel, basically. And to most people, that sounds like a too big number. Like most people would say you have to add other channels way before that. But I think that the thing that he does not say, and I've worked with him a bunch, so I know what he is doing under the hood, is he is like incredible at extraordinary diversification of creative to like get all sorts of people and very wide breadths of people to be excited about the product category. So what he's actually doing under the hood is like taking full advantage of a very wide spectrum of types of people who are on Meta. right? And like most of the time, the reason why people are channel diversifying is because they're not able to get outside of the core audience that they have on Meta.
Yeah.
And so then adding another channel is a way to accomplish that. And so to at least what I've observed, and therefore my framework about this, is the 10 to 100 stage is like you to hit 10, you have probably gotten your like first core audience that loves you for the thing that you have set out to start doing.
Mm-hmm.
And now the question becomes like, why should anybody else care? And all of those people have reasons to care, but you need to meet them with that message.
Mm-hmm.
And so like meeting them with that message all the way from the ad, all the way through to how they check out is my opinion of like why the audience diversification is the way you get from 10 to 100. And I think different people use different words for this. Some people say like creative, I got to have like more creative diversity and all these sorts like people will use different words for the same actual underlying problem, which is like, how do I find the next segment of audience, the next segment of audience, the next segment of audience? And I think you just have to be more disciplined about measuring it by audience cohorts as opposed to like saying things that are a little too loose, like creative diversity.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yep. Somebody who would agree with what you were saying there, Christian Limon, who is the head of growth over at Wish. And I think that he scaled on Facebook only, I think until they were, spending. They were the number one spender on Facebook, I think, before they even diversified over to Google as a channel for the very same reason that you said. But they had the product breadth that allowed them to do it, right? So they were able to reach every audience with something. They had a product for literally every single person. So that allowed them to do that. But when I think about this, let's say without product expansion, if you're just going from 10 to 100 million and you're not doing product expansion, you're just doing audience cohort expansion. The example that comes to my mind would be something like the Stanley mugs. They had an audience, they had a product. They basically took the same product. Now they modified it slightly, but it's essentially the same product. And they were able to find a completely different audience, middle school girls who are like, I have to have this, and every single one of them needed to have that. Audience expansion. So that's the one that comes to my mind. But when you talk about this, is there one that comes to mind to help people understand that it's like, it's the same product, you're just expanding into a different audience?
The one that I use most often is like supplement benefits and like audience types. So like, let's just use creatine. Like creatine is my favorite example to use because there's like, there's like the already very athletic like body type person who would use creatine for like continuing doing what they were doing, right? Within the category of like, hey, this helps with muscle build. And then there's like the person like me who's like, hey, if you have any shot of like being stronger than you are today, you got to start taking creatine.
Sure.
Right. So there's like, within the like benefit of becoming stronger, there's a massively wide audience, right? A more like current example, even more current than creatine, is like rucking. Like rucking for whatever reason is like super hot right now,
especially in B2C Twitter. Yeah,
but it's like you want to be able to show that rucking is like something that like a very athletic person can do and not that athletic of a person. It's like, hey, actually just go for a walk with weight on, right? Like that's also good for your health. So like, first of all, like within a benefit, you can like have a very wide audience. And then now if you have a second benefit like creatine, which is like mental focus, it becomes painfully obvious how you need to have different creative, different landing experiences, different PDPs, different checkouts, because the person who's buying it for muscle build probably is going to want to buy it on a recurring basis. The person who's buying it for mental focus is probably going to want to try to see how they feel after trying it for like a month. And so like one can be one-time purchase focused, the other one can be repeat purchase focused. Like there's like lots of different reasons why the whole funnel changes depending on the audience and the benefit that you're selling to. And so those are the types of examples that I tend to go to.
I think those are great examples. I'm glad that you called out both aspects of it, right? Like one was within one benefit, there's different mentalities, but then even outside of that, you have other benefits. And so a lot of opportunity to expand. Going beyond 100 million for the fun of it, then let's say you've begun to expand your audiences. Then what's next? Is it product expansion?
It has to be. I know zero companies that go past 100.
Sure.
Whether brand or software, without product expansion. Like literally zero. Yeah. Like even like the hyperscalers, like compute, they're adding like a very large number of products under the hood, right? They're adding like, okay, maybe ChatGPT and Cursor. It's like one product and it's like scaled to like the $1 billion mark.
Very few. Yeah.
But it's like, it's so, I mean, like, it's so rare that even like AG1 just launched new flavors.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like, you can call that not the same product, but there's a reason why they like it used to actually be like literally one product. Like you either buy AG1 or you don't.
Yeah, I don't know that I would call new flavors a new product, but like to the point of what you're saying, it's like it can reach some other people, but you're probably going beyond like that single product still, right? For a lot of them.
I just think that you have changed who like I think in a good way. I want to be very clear about this. I'm not saying like I'm not saying it to be critical of AG1, but like I think AG1 is very smart to acknowledge that they went from like, hey, we are just this to actually we're going to meet people where they are with like product formulations that are different from our initial product formulation. And flavoring for a beverage product happens to be the biggest lever for most beverage products. Like it would not surprise me if after flavoring, they actually started to change formulation. And once they change formulation, then we would agree that it's a different product, right?
How much of the growth above 100 million do you think is because of the product expansion allowing you to sell more to your current customers, or because the product expansion allows you to now open up to a completely different audience cohort?
I think it is more the former than the latter.
Okay.
Like, I think it is more the case that there are people who are either consuming less of your product or who are only consuming the one SKU or whatever it may be, who now you can sell another product to, or who previously did not exist in your, like, this is now the second product, the second part of your point. But I tend to think that if you're at the $100 million mark, the total number of people who are like, hey, these are net new people.
Sure.
It's just not that big.
Yeah.
$100 million is a lot.
Like,
like if you're selling, like, just think about the pure math of this. Like, let's say you're a $100 million brand in the US, very roughly speaking. There's only 300 million people in the US.
Right.
It means like you've sold $1 of stuff to everybody in America every 3 years. Like, that's, you know, like, you are going to at some point hit like what is your attainable audience? Yeah.
No, that's good. Something else that you've chatted about that I appreciate is using bundling as a lever to increase AOV. So we touched on AOV on other channels, but using bundling. What makes a bundle work and what kills it?
I think like the bundle has to be useful. The bundle has to meet the consumer where they are for why they got to your website in the first place.
Sure.
So the reason, like, I'll use True Classic as an example again. Almost everybody who buys their first product from True Classic buys like a 3 t-shirt bundle. Okay, like white, gray, black, and like there is a reason for that, right? It's because it's like, hey, I'm not going to buy just one because that feels like not a good use of like shipping cost to like cost of product. And so like that is a very well architected bundle, so to speak. And so just like meeting people with why they're there are the best bundles. I think like stuffing people basically never works.
Sure.
Like doing it for the sake of doing it never works. Like there has to be a reason why these things are being purchased together. Yeah.
Again, that's true for everything in life, right? Like the more there's an actual reason, the better it will work. And so get away from the scammy tactics. Find out what do your customers actually, how would they benefit from a bundle? That bundle will likely do a lot better. I want to talk a little bit about FERMÁT. You pivoted from influencer storefronts. What happened, and what does that teach you about product market fit?
A lot of people have said this before, and I finally understand it. Product market fit is not a singular thing and does not happen one time. So like you may have product market fit and then the market changes and now you don't have it anymore. Or something else, some other dynamic changes and you like no longer have it anymore. Like you're hopping and people have to stay at home and there's no longer a pandemic and people don't have to stay at home, right? And so like you like fall into and then out of product market fit, right? Or do you even remember Clubhouse?
Oh yeah, for the very brief time that was. I got an early invite, felt pretty cool, and yeah, that died.
Yeah, you were just like, oh my God, I haven't thought about them in years, right?
I had to think for a second when you said that.
Yeah, and so like,
yeah,
it would be impossible to say that they did not have product market fit. They did.
Yeah.
And I mean, they should feel very proud of the fact that they did. Like it's so hard to build something of value, and it was of value to a lot of people. And then it just turns out that like the market changed because we no longer had a pandemic.
Yeah.
And like people are now happy to like hear podcast format or watch video podcasts or whatever it is. And they don't need that like live audio anymore because they just like talk to people as they walk around and go about their day. And so I think like product market fit for me, I'm like, hey, you just need to be continuously meeting people with whatever their need is at any point in time. And you have to be cognizant of the point in time, the context, all of these sorts of things. And that is your product market fit. And it's going to like it's going to keep doing this. It's going to keep going back and forth. Like Uber, massive product market fit. Then it all went away. And then it came right back.
Yeah.
You know, but like nobody's going to like even think about the fact that they lost it for 2 years. Yeah. Or nobody would say like, hey, they didn't have product market fit for 2 years, because that would sound derogatory and it would be a weird thing to say, but they literally did, right? Eats kept the business alive for 2 years.
Yeah, you're right. That's wild to think about. I want to talk about who is Rishabh Jain, because I like getting to know the human being behind some of these insights. Tell me about your childhood and how that has helped shape you to be the person that you are today.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about what is the most useful way to share this. So I think I have always been attracted to like, why do things work the way they do? I don't know why. That has been like a natural attraction of mine from like a very, very early age. So it early on showed up as like a love for physics and a love for economics and things like that. And then for whatever reason, I also from a very young age, probably because of my dad, believed that like for-profit business was the best way to like share those ideas with the world. So it's like understand how things work and why they work the way they do, and then for-profit business is like your distribution for those ideas. And that like basically just like has like, yeah, has been the number one thing that I've been pursuing since I was like very young. So like, and even as early as 7th and 8th grade, I was like extremely oriented toward physics and the natural world and how things work and why they work, and was like almost an annoying student. And then
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
So,
and then
like how? Like when you said that you were, you know, an annoying student or that you were extremely into physics, like what does that look like? Like you're reading books about it? Like you're like, hey, I'm going to take home this textbook?
I mean, it's like going to class and like challenging why the teacher is teaching things in a certain way, or it's like, hey, like, shouldn't this imply this other thing? Or, hey, actually, this other thing is true. Like, you're misunderstanding what the textbook is saying.
And not to be disrespectful, it's because you're just genuinely curious and wanting an answer for that.
I mean, I was also a little bit of a jerk. I mean, at that age, I was also a jerk. But, like, it turns out you can be a jerk and not be curious. I was a jerk and curious.
Sure.
Yeah. So, like, the choice, the words I used, unfortunately, were not amazing. But the underlying motivation was just, extreme curiosity for, like, why is this thing the way this is? Yeah.
I can relate to I've grown from my jerk ways as well. You just reminded me of an example. I remember we were learning about like EKGs, and, you know, there are lines that are measuring amplitude, and there are lines that are measuring time on this. And I remember the question was, what do the horizontal lines, plural, what do the horizontal lines measure? And I said amplitude, and I got it wrong. And she said, nope, the horizontal lines are measuring time. And I said, no, the horizontal axis is measuring time. The horizontal lines are integers on the vertical axis. Apparently, I'm the only one who got it right, including you. Jerk move, right?
Totally.
But to your point, it's like, you know, curious, but a jerk. And I think most of us are probably jerks around that age. You are also highly competitive with yourself, not highly competitive with other people, but you held yourself to a very high standard. You said that you would come home with a 99, and you're like, yeah, but, you know, could have done better. Is that something that's just intrinsic? Is it something that was learned?
Oh, no. So that actually was like, I would come home with a 99 and my dad would be like, where's the one?
Your dad would say that. Okay.
Yeah. So this is like part inflicted and part self-learned. Yeah.
Sure.
And so where it switched was basically in like late high school and college, where and then for sure in grad school, but like at a certain point, it's not that valuable to compete with others. It is more valuable to understand where exceptionalism is coming from for others, and then to use that to improve your own like work, basically. Right. And so like the best example I have of this is like grad school. Like, everybody's doing their own research or whatever. And so there's not really a competition with other grad students per se. And so the only thing you have is like, okay, what is the most impactful thing I can study, and how do I do it most effectively? And so instead of like, and this is where the like 99, where is the one, like sort of mentality starts to come in, is, okay, what am I not doing that I could do that would like meaningfully shift what my output is? And then you just like keep doing that. And at some point, it really is not valuable to like compete with others. I also did this exercise. You might find this interesting. I did this exercise recently where, like, when we were first raising our seed round for FERMÁT, I remember like we would get compared to a bunch of other companies, and people would be like, oh, is this the right angle? Or what about this other company and that other company and that whatever. None of those companies exist anymore. They're all dead. And I was like, this is why competing is irrelevant. Like, you should never be competing, because if all I was doing was worrying about what those other companies are doing and like trying to be better than them, I would just be like I would be like spending energy on all of the wrong things. And then that happened with our A, and all of those companies are dead. And it's like, it just like keeps happening. And it's like, it actually turns out that competing is not the productive.
And we hear that all the time. I mean, you like the story, you know, let's just say that's overtold is the runner who's in a race who looks back to see where the other person is, and they get beat because of that, right? It's ineffective use of time. It's ineffective use of resources, time, money, whatever it might be, but some type of ineffective use of that. I'm glad you brought up grad school, because there was another story that you told me that I really wanted to make sure we touch on, which is your pitch to Brian Halligan. Why were you pitching to him? What was going on? And what did he have to say to you? We kind of already alluded to.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I tell this story all the time because it's like, there are moments in time where you're like upset in the moment, but it's like actually the most valuable lesson that you could have learned. I was taking like an entrepreneurship class at MIT, and this like class was you're just starting a company. And so actually there are very large companies that got started in this class, right? So one of the ones that was like in my class is this company called Solid Energy Systems. It's like a large battery company now. Anyway,
Wow.
that's like
cool.
neither here nor there, but it was taught by Brian Halligan and Paul, gosh, I forgot his last name. He's the founder of Kayak. So the founder of HubSpot and the founder of Kayak basically were teaching this class. And so part of that was like, hey, pitch us like you're pitching a VC, right? And so I like did my thing, and he's like, Brian basically said to me, the reason why I would not invest has nothing to do with anything you said to me, but you just give this nervous energy that is not inspiring of confidence. And at the time I was like, oh, like blah, 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 but I like know what I'm doing. But of course I like ruminated on it, right? I'm not like one to hear feedback and to not think about why is he saying that. And it's true. Like you have to exhibit confidence and conviction in what you're doing. Otherwise, how will somebody else have conviction in what you're doing? And so that was like a super valuable interaction. And he didn't have to do that. Like the thing I think about all the time is he could have just been nice to me.
Sure.
But instead he was kind enough to actually tell me what he thought. And I'm like so grateful that he did that. Yeah, because like if I like there's so many other people who would just choose not to give you actually what they thought feedback. So
I love that you said that he could have just been nice to me, but the reality is not telling you that feedback is not very nice, because you've gone on now to have to pitch to real VCs, and it has resulted in very real multi-million-dollar Series A, Series B. You're leading a company. Had he not given you that advice, that's not nice to you. That's not nice to the people that you've employed. That's not nice to the businesses that you've helped. Like there's a significant ripple effect to him having the kindness to say what needed to be said in that moment.
Yeah, totally. And in fact, if anything, now people tell me I'm a good fundraiser. So
yeah, I've heard that. I know somebody who was in one of the boardrooms with you, and I don't remember if it's Series A or Series B, but that is something that he had told me when I said I was going to be interviewing you. He was like, he's very good. Like he really knows how to tell his stuff. Like it's impressive, and you should ask him a little about that. So to that effect, what is like a tip that you would give to somebody who is going into raise Series A, Series B, something along those lines? Seed money, I guess it doesn't care what raise it is, but they're pitching to VCs, PEs, and they want to make sure that they're putting the best foot forward here.
Yeah, I think that like the surprising thing about what I'm going to say is that it's like super unsurprising. So it's like my number one advice for people is do not use any of the like standard deck formats that you see floating around on the internet. Like I cannot think of a worse way for you to pitch your business. Like the whole like problem solution, whatever those like things are that are like floating around on the internet. That is the fastest way for someone to consume the information about your business. It is not the best way for you to pitch your business.
Sure.
The best way for you to pitch your business is the same way that like a D2C brand hooks you to buy their product. So it's like this person, like what do they get excited about? Okay, so you start with the thing that they would get excited about. Then you tell them, hey, like I know you would get excited about this because this is the thing to get excited about. And here's how you would know if the thing is happening. So now you tell them how to measure the thing. Okay, so you tell them what they're excited about by doing your homework. You tell them how to measure it. And then you show them that metric. It's like not rocket science. It's like, hey, here's what you love. Therefore, here's how we think about measuring that thing, right? Like you and me were in this together.
Yeah,
and here's the traction on that thing. And you will get like my conversion rate to second meetings is like close to 100%, basically.
Wow. It's so simple. Like you said, it's so simple. But I think similar to what we talked about before, it's easier for us to want to work with the hack. It's easier for us to go to the shiny thing and say, I'm going to spend my time here instead of spending the time on the thing that actually matters. Your cogs have doubled. Spend the time there. Or you know who the audience is you're talking to. Spend the time getting to know what do they actually care about and go through this very, very simple framework. But I think that feels daunting. And so we end up going towards the stuff that we maybe feel a little bit more comfortable doing. But it's not as effective.
I think we feel comfortable doing it because it's like, oh, other people told me to do it.
Sure.
And so now when you fail, you have something to blame. And the problem with my approach is like when I fail, I have nobody to blame.
Uh-huh.
So I'm actually totally fine failing without anybody or anything to blame. Uh-huh. And I think that's what has to be true if you're going to be a founder is you cannot be seeking something to allocate the failure to. You just have to be fine with like, that didn't work. What do you know? I got to do something else now.
That is so good, but that is so hard. There's been some times where it's been us against, Element against VaynerMedia. And so there was a contract that we won. It was just between the two of us for who was going to win the contract. We won against that. So, take that, Gary Vee. Love Gary Vee. I think he's great. But it's, it's very easy for a lot of companies to say, yeah, but it's VaynerMedia. And so here's the thing. If I go with them, it's the safe bet. If they don't grow me, if we fail, my job is protected. Going back to job protection, right? Like my job is a little bit more safe because, well, you made the smart bet or the bet that seems to make sense. Hey, I used the pitch deck that everybody told me to use. So I failed, but you know what? I did what was versus owning your choices and saying, yeah, that might be the quote unquote safe bet, but why don't I take a chance and do what my gut actually tells me is right in this moment here? I'm going to go ahead and choose Element. I'm going to go ahead and put together the right pitch the way that Rishabh has told me to. And now I have nobody else to fall back on for the blame but myself, but I can hopefully live with myself better knowing that I gave it a better shot.
And hopefully also it makes your learning cycles faster, which is the bigger thing. Because by the way, like my failure rate is also insanely high, right? But this is like true for most successful people have a very high failure rate. Sure. It just turns out that when they're right, it makes up for all the failures. And the only reason that can be true is because the way that you have set the stage is such that when you're right, it actually works really well, right?
What are some of the other things that you're just personally passionate about? Like when you're not building this incredible company, what do you like to do?
Well, right now, I would say that my time is pretty occupied between the company and my kids. And so that's a huge part of my life. But the two things that I do for just like my own, I guess like maintenance, you would call it, is I work out with a trainer 2 to 3 times a week. Nice. And then I listen to actually a lot of podcast content. And the reason for both of those is I think that is the highest density way for either getting like physical training or idea generation. And so like I like listening to podcasts because it's like there's a lot of people on podcasts who otherwise the cost of me getting what they think is so ridiculously high.
Sure.
But it has like basically come down to zero. Like the cost is just me discovering that podcast and their content on that podcast. And that's like a ridiculously low cost. Like I almost can't believe it. Yeah.
Both of those are incredible. Working the body, working the mind, they both work together. When you're listening to podcasts, I assume a lot of these are probably business podcasts. Do you still have a passion for physics? Is it something that you're still studying a little bit for fun? Do you find yourself, no, you're like, nope, moved on to economics and building and growing a business?
Yeah. I find that like, it's like totally fine to like live life in chapters. Uh-huh. You know what I mean? A lot of people are like, oh, you got your PhD. Like, isn't it weird that you don't use it anymore? And I'm like, my like almost instant response when people say that is like, wow, you must be horrible with sunk cost fallacy.
Huh.
Like,
sure.
like the fact that you even think that I should be doing something related to my degree suggests that you don't believe in the idea of like, I wanted to do it then, and I wanted to do something else, and then tomorrow I may want to do something else, and then so on and so forth. And like, I want to live a life of interesting chapters, and so far I have done that, which is like the total opposite of like what most people are like, oh, I invested this time, like I need to take advantage of it. I mean, and at the same time, if you ask them what sunk cost is, they will like tell you the words.
Sure.
But they like have no way of like actually living that reality. Yeah.
Again, that's another thing that I feel like is hard for us to break out of. I don't know. There's something in us that wants to stay within that framework of mind. And it's hard to break out of. Rishabh, I have thoroughly enjoyed talking to you today, learning from you. If people want to work with you, if they want to follow you, what's the best way for them to stay in touch?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm very active on X and LinkedIn, and I'm just Rishabh M. Jain on both of those. So that's like actually the best way to get in touch. Cool.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time, sharing your knowledge, sharing your wisdom with us for free. For free, everybody. You get to listen to this brilliant mind for free. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Amazing questions. Yeah, and again, the best intro I've ever had. So I'm gonna have to like get that clip and like play it in the office when I walk in or something.
Yeah, that's your walk-on music.
Exactly.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.